If I understand the context better, I can personalize better.
Some point there are certain leakages.
In each and every place, I do not want individuals' personal data.
It means that our financial privacy has been violated.
So I've seen this happen right in front of me.
There is talent in abundance, and there are problem statements also in abundance.
It's impossible to say that all companies have it.
There needs to be strict guidelines around info security.
A lot of people, just because they ask, they end up giving.
The question is that the VCs are now just not looking at hyper growth, they're looking at profitability.
The US started hyper growth, the China started hyper growth.
Be very, very cautious when you're increasing your prices for the end customers.
The Indian customer is significantly more elastic than is the Indian employee.
I think there's a good, I would say, opportunity both for the organization to find the right kind of talent, which will get into the leadership pipeline, and also for the, I would say, so-called fresh talent to be able to assimilate and comfortably grow.
Both from the college side as well as when companies come, we tell them that we need to talk about this to the students.
Broadly, I would say there are 3 pillars in which I would construct personalization strategies.
In my opinion, it's because it is the duty of education to create empathy towards business.
Where we make sure that we give back to the society, at the same time we learn a lot.
Tired and frustrated of corporate artificial and plastic talks? Are you frustrated with unskilled YouTube gurus telling you what to upskill, how to cross-skill when they themselves don't have any tech background? So here at Titan Stock, we call industry stalwarts from across multiple industries and have them share their views on what they look for in lateral candidates and in freshers. So these are people who've been there, done that, and who are continuing to do. So these folks are going to give you their raw, unfiltered opinion on what they want and what they look for in a candidate and how you can prepare. We will talk about how should a lateral approach every industry and how they should get in, and how a fresher should kind of prepare themselves so that they become industry ready and more employable compared to just another college graduate. Welcome to Titan Stock. Here we are with another episode, again breaking the shackles of corporate world and talking to you straight from the heart. Hey, hi. Welcome again to Titan Stock. Today we are going to discuss the importance of privacy versus personalization. We have an esteemed panel of guests here who are all from different walks of life in fintech, in retail, in different walks of social media as well. So we're going to have them talk to you about privacy and personalization and how do we balance it. We have Ananth, who heads ads at Ajio. We have Karthik, who is from ShareChat. We have Abhishek from Capture CX, and we have Aditya from 50fin, and we have Karthik from Vishwakarma.
Hey everyone, this is Ananth. I head ads at Ajio, which is a part of Reliance Retail. It's been close to a decade for me in consumer tech in the Indian landscape. I also happen to be a Vishwakarma alumni.
Hi everyone, this is Karthik, and I'm a part of the revenue and monetization team at ShareChat. Spent close to a decade and a half in the consumer internet space across multiple startups, including Flipkart, Swiggy, OLX, and my previous assignment to ShareChat was at Hotstar. So excited to be with this panel and discuss the topic. Yeah, looking forward.
Hi everyone, I'm Abhishek Mangaraj. I take care of the customer success function at Capture CX. I hold an experience of close to a decade and a half in managing and growing existing customers. Prior to Capture CX, I've been associated with companies like Yellow.ai, Capillary Technologies, Netcore, and many other SaaS companies. It's a pleasure to be a part of this particular panel. Look forward to having an interesting discussion.
Hey guys, I'm Aditya. I'm the CEO and co-founder of 50fin. What we basically do is we have India's leading capital markets lending platform. We provide loans against shares and mutual funds. We do it all in 7 minutes and dispersal in 4 working hours. We've been at this for the last 2 years, and in that same time, we've become the leading B2C secure lending platform for capital markets lending in India. But always happy to discuss personalization and data being in fintech.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Karthik from Vishwakarma Group. So I had the training and placements there since about 8 years now. So Vishwakarma Group is based out of Pune, and we have about close to 4,000 engineers graduating each year. So I'm very happy to be part of this panel and discuss and obtain some insights. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all for accepting the invitation. So I wanted to, the concept of this is to, understand, personalization and privacy. This is like walking, a rope walk, tight rope walk, in fact. So where, you have to maintain both of these things. So I wanted to understand from you all, how do you approach all these things and what is your perspective on it? So Ananth, I wanted to start with you. You spent about a decade in Indian consumer tech, that too across very different organizations. What's your take on importance of personalization in a customer's journey?
Thanks, Gautam. I think great question. To come to the importance of personalization, in consumer tech, let's first understand what is personalization, right? In simple terms, it is my ability to stand out and be more relevant to my most important stakeholder, which in most cases is the customer or the user. And relevance is the operative word over here. All right. How do we be more relevant? It is by presenting the right set of experiences, the most relevant set of experiences, relevant recommendations and suggestions, and even customized and relevant content. All right. How do we do that? How do we get there? By kind of understanding and learning the customer's different footprints. Can be demographic information. Where do you come from? What languages do you speak? Can be your, I would say, interest and preferences, which you have indicated, as you kind of move through the online world. Can be your past, I would say, purchases and interest, however you have signaled, I would say, throughout your presence online. Now, how does that kind of help an organization, especially in consumer tech? Is that if you are going to be more relevant to the person who's interested to avail of your services or buy something from you, you're going to appeal to him or her more, convert that customer, which means you're going to have more customers, more of your users becoming customers. Biggest thing. And then you keep doing that over time, you're going to retain these customers. All right. So you have 10 people walking in your door, 8 of them are still your customers. All right. You keep doing that over a period of time. This 8 are going to get 8 more people. So advocacy is going to happen. All right. So you have a set of entrenched customers, and then you have that pool growing because they're going to get more, saying that, hey, this is a great platform, you should come here, check this content out, or start buying from here. And once that kind of virtuous cycle keeps on happening, then you can introduce things like cross selling and upselling, which is also a very personalized, I would say, a leg of personalization. Cross selling in very simple terms, again, because there are a lot of students who might not be from management. I would say this is targeted at. If I am buying a phone, all right, my ability to be able to sell a mobile cover, maybe a memory card, and other accessories is cross selling. Upselling would be, hey, you know what, you bought the 13, now the 15 Pro is out, so I think you're the right guy. Go ahead and upgrade yourself. So that is cross selling and upselling. All of this together. So we grew the customer, we retained a bunch of customers, we grew the pool, and we kind of got their AOVs or average order values up. So in doing all of this, the lifetime value of the customer is going to go up. As that happens, you have a higher pool of customers, you have high LTVs. Your organization is going to be more and more relevant in the market and in the scheme of things. And as as an organization adding value to the overall ecosystem, you will also grow. So I would say, for the organization to remain relevant and grow relevance in the market, personalization would be a very pivotal thing. That, I would say, in short, would be the importance of it.
Got it. So Aditya, coming to you, right? In fintech, which is a very kind of a tricky space, how do you balance between privacy and personalization?
I think the balance by the fintech is formed over time, right? So the key issue, the challenge actually is when the fintech is born, the fintech doesn't know who regulates the fintech. And more often than not, the fintech is unregulated. So let's say right now in India, we have so many fintechs scaled to incredible numbers and still in a very gray area of regulation. What happens there is the fintech doesn't know what kind of data it can access, what kind of data it can store, and how to, let alone utilize data if it can, right? So that amount of transparency isn't given by the regulator. What that actually kind of leads into that lack of transparency is lack of transparency to the consumer, because the consumer willingly or unwillingly is providing that data, and the fintech in turn is using it for X number of reasons. So let's say, for example, today you come to 50fin. We of course are a SEBI regulated, RBI regulated entity, but I am able to see your entire portfolio, and on seeing your portfolio, I'm also able to see X number of other factors as per your financial health. I go ahead and I put out a loan offer to you, where I pledge your mutual funds or shares, give you a certain rate and processing fees associated with it. The personalization over here comes when, can I go ahead and take that data? First of all, can I store it on my books? When I am not the person giving the loan and it's the NBFC or the bank, as a aggregator, as a facilitator or a fintech platform, am I allowed to even do it, right? So there, I think there's a lack of transparency there. That's, I think, the first number one big challenge in fintech especially. But the way that government, or at least the higher authorities, have been able to combat that is get that AA, account aggregator framework out there, right? And that itself, I think, is going to be redefining the Indian fintech landscape. In one OTP, if a client or the consumer is able to give us with consent knowledge of why they're giving it, all the way from bank statement, GST, capital markets portfolio, insurance, GST, and not just have it as a single consent, but a standing consent for 12 months, then there's so much more uh, trust built between the consumer and I. And that's where I can go ahead and ethically strategize a sophisticated technology to utilize and personalize that data. And that's where I think you can go ahead and put a good product out there. Where it goes bad in the middle of all of this jargon is actually, what happens with personalization is sometimes you reaffirm a bias, right? Let's say, for example, today, boss, I do loans against shares and loans against mutual funds, right? Average Joe on the road, you talk to him, who has more shares or mutual funds? If you ask him, boss, is it the guy in Bangalore or is it the guy in Hubli Dharwad? The average answer will be Bangalore. Today, 55% of my loans, capital market based pledged loans, are coming from tier 2, tier 3 cities, which is a huge, at least, shocker to a lot of people. But sometimes with personalization early on, right, I'm going to go ahead and implement that bias that here the consumer is accessing me from a tier 2, tier 3 city. His bank account is registered, his IFSC code is in the tier 2, tier 3 city. So I don't even think he has a portfolio. Even if he does have a portfolio, maybe the risk is going to be a little bit higher. Maybe I should go ahead and charge him higher interest rate, higher processing fees, give him the lender of last resort, right? And that is incredibly unhealthy, right? So there's a high chance that a lot of time personalization can really reaffirm terrible biases. But as long as you are ethical in strategizing it, then it should be okay.
Okay. So a follow-up question to that is that they are sharing all the data
Yeah.
to you and you are personalizing, but provided there is an ethical layer that is possible, do you think all the companies kind of have this, or do you think the ones that do stand out, or how do you think this is evolving?
It's impossible to say that all companies have it, right? By nature. And I think that's good, right? There's always competition to get better. But the companies that do it eventually stand out for the right reasons. If you're going to go ahead and access the most personal data, see, for example, you come on a loan aggregator platform, a credit platform, and you give them an account aggregator consent. What that platform is able to do from day 0 to day 365 is poke into your bank statement at any time, right? That is the most personal information I can imagine. So when that seems to be the case, I think you just have to be really ethical in the way that you devise your technology. There's a lot of data points over there where I can it can be misutilized. But as long as you hold firm, you make sure that you report yourself ethically to the regulator. You make sure that the regulator is this overarching parent or God that, boss, I'm doing everything right by you, right by the people of this country. Then eventually, the team is kind of set in a way that this is what we can do, this is what we should not do. And in the middle is efficiency.
Okay. Okay. So I wanted to understand, the ethical considerations, Karthik and Abhishek. So what are the most effective strategies that you've used to, balance personalization with, customer trust?
Yeah. So this is an interesting one, Gautam. So I'll probably contextualize it a little bit before I answer, right? There was a survey that was done by PricewaterhouseCoopers about 2 years back that said that 82% of consumers actually are willing to share personal data in exchange for getting a personalized service. Marry that with another data point where Accenture did a study which says that 91% of consumers are more likely to buy from a brand which knows them, which understands them, and which gives them personalized offers. So the reason for sharing this data is that if a brand is able to use personalization in the right manner, they can actually build a relationship with the consumer far beyond a transaction that's happened. Something far more meaningful, something far more deep. The way I think about this is to build personalization strategies. Broadly, I would say there are three pillars in which I would construct personalization strategies, right? The three pillars are: first is building awareness, right? What I mean by that is that as a brand, you have to be completely aware and be mindful of the entire external ecosystem that you're working with, right? So whether it is the legal framework, the regulatory framework, or the ethical, what is ethically right or wrong to do, as well as what is technically feasible to do in terms of data and tools that are available, right? So if you think about regulation, right, you could be a company that is present in one country, your consumers could be in another place. Across these two geographies, are you regulated, or are you under the purview of, let's say, GDPR or CCPA or e-privacy laws, right? So that awareness is, I think, the first element. Like, what are you legally bound by from a framework or perspective? The second one, of course, is ethical, right? Like, what is right and wrong to do from a consumer lens, right? That's also very important to know. And the third one, of course, is depending on the tools and processes that are there in your internal or external market, what is actually feasible to do. While this is largely external, from an internal point of view, all brands and companies are trying to build a CDP, or a consumer data platform, right? And as you think about your CDP, the three big questions is: A, what is the source of your data? Like, typically you have first party data that flows into a CDP. You could also have a third party data, or you could have some enrichment to your first party data that could be happening. Second is, what is the quality of the data, right? Is it, like, especially when it's third party data, what is the veracity of the data? How verified is the third party provider? And third and most important part is, your personalization engines and reco algorithms are actually using what amount of this data, and they're feeding into that engine, right? So both the external awareness and the internal data awareness is extremely, extremely critical. And the third layer of building awareness, I would say, is that as you're building your systems and processes, especially if you're a younger brand or a startup, like, you have to be building privacy first. It shouldn't be an afterthought that comes saying that, hey, I've built my systems and processes, and now there's a plugin of how do I think about user privacy, right? So as you're building your systems and processes, think about privacy first. And that, I would say, is the entire piece or pillar around building awareness. The second pillar, I would say, is building trust, right? Because as you're taking consumer data, it is extremely, extremely important to build trust in the minds of the consumer, right? Things like, what data are you taking from me? How are you going to use this data? Where are you storing this data? What is your goal seek in terms of the personalization? Should be very upfront and clear. And the nuance, Gautam, here is not in the what, it's in the how. Because if you look at the way all of this is communicated to a consumer today, it's behind 10,000 words on a privacy form that somebody just accepts and moves ahead, or it is behind some data notice which people just say that, okay, I don't have the time to read it. So how can we be mindful in terms of making this more and more aware to a consumer, at least in terms of, what is my goal seek when it comes to the personalization engine that I'm running? And all of those goals should be tied around better consumer experience, and not, say, manipulation or trying to missell, right? The third pillar, I would say, is building consumer journeys and experience, right? And that's the critical element, right? And when I think about the third pillar, right, see, the consumer has given something very dear and important, which is their personal information to us, right, as a brand. And when you think about how to use it, right, there is a spectrum of over personalization versus under personalization. And to find that right balance, one needs to think about, okay, how am I going to use this data better, right? So ideally, when you are running your personalization engines, you have to be looking at cohort level or segment level data rather than personally identifiable information, right? So the cohort could be anything. It could be demographic, geographic, interest based, etc. But that's what you want to use, right? And as a brand, when you think of some content that you have, it is in a particular format, it is on a particular distribution platform. but always think consumer backwards, right? What is the consumer journey going to be on that platform, right? What is the intent of that consumer? What is the context in which the consumer is consuming that content? That will actually define how your personalization strategy comes about, right? And to give you a very simple example, right? And maybe it's an oversimplification, but still, I'll go with it. Is that, let's say you're buying international travel tickets, right? And when you're on the, let's say, the website, the app, to buy international travel tickets, if me as a service provider of insurance will obviously try and sell you, let's say, travel insurance, because the context of the consumer is him trying to buy, let's say, international travel, right? My high margin products could be two-wheeler, four-wheeler insurance or any other kind, but if I understand the context better, I can personalize better, right? More importantly, when should I personalize, right? If the consumer is sticky into that journey, do I do it when he's consuming or trying to finish off his transaction? Do I do it after he's done the purchase of the tickets? Or if my database says that 10 days before date of travel is when people actually purchase insurance, travel insurance, should I send him a nudge or a reminder then, right? So understanding the context of that consumer actually helps you to define your strategy in a much better manner. So understanding these three pillars, I think, would help you define your personalization strategies much better.
Okay, that's pretty interesting because companies tread on a very fine path, like monetization, and then hyper personalization is also very difficult from a technology standpoint of view, right? So like say somebody is booking a ticket for next week. Do you have a different way, like add travel insurance checkbox at the end, versus somebody is buying a ticket 2 months from now? So what do? You just remove it or just leave it as it is and then do the follow up later? So that part.
Yeah, so Gautam, that's actually that's the holy grail, is what I would say, right? Because there is no right answer. Like, that's the very honest point of view, right? And personalization is largely about doing a lot of testing, right? You have to keep doing a lot of testing to see, and a lot of A/B tests to see what's working, what's not working. For example, do I test this? Let's say, for example, personalized offer at this stage at the cart level. Do I do it at some other level? Now let's say if you're working on a test, after you get statistically significant results, you know whether you can scale this or not, right? And then you know that test is working or not. The best part is, it's not just the context or the offer that can change, it's the consumer behavior that can also change and evolve over time, right? So I think personalization, especially when a brand or company is trying to build it, needs to be rigorously tested and tested again and again to see what's working best. And it's only then you get the best results of marrying what's best for the consumer and what's best for the brand.
So strategy working today, probably 2 months from now, it can become
Absolutely.
outdated.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
okay. So Abhishek, Capture CX has customer experience on its name itself.
Correct.
So wanted to, kind of understand what are the adjustments you found to be effective for ensuring ethical personalization.
See, finding a perfect balance is actually difficult, right? So, in fact, as per the recent survey by Deloitte, at least 47% companies do not find the perfect balance. And to make sure that things are more simplified, the best approach would be first to be transparent, right? Whatever information is actually taken from the customer, you need to actually communicate that so that they are fine about giving those particular data points. That's one. Second is you need to make sure that there are certain anonymization that happens. That means that in each and every place, I do not want individuals' personal data. Like Karthik was mentioning, certain cohort of information is what I would want. So at that point of time, I should actually practice anonymization, which will help me build that cohort. That's second. Third, what I should also focus on is giving the consent, right? There should be consent taken from the customers. There are multiple places where the consent is actually not taken from the customer, and which later on is sold to other vendors, which becomes a bigger problem. That's the reason you get a lot of spam calls, right? And apart from that, there needs to be data minimization all put together. Whatever relevant data points is actually required, that is the only one that you need to be capturing it from the customers. The other information is actually not going to be relevant. So why do you capture those information and keep it with you? So you need to be very, very particular with this. And one thing that you need to make sure is there are regular audits that is happening. that makes sure that the information is secure at a company's end, which will make sure that both the business houses and the end customers are relieved in these situations. Last but not the least, what I would emphasize is empower your customers, right? Educate them, tell them about what sort of information is actually going to be required. Then you'll realize that they would want to give in those pieces of information, because at the end of the day, they would want relevant offers and recommendations, because it's a mutual beneficial cooperation at the end of the day, right? Business houses earn and the customer gets what they want. So that's my submission in this particular topic.
So, Abhishek, another follow up to that,
Right.
because I see this happening a lot. Like, when getting consent from the customer, right? You make it so tedious for him that he doesn't know what he's sharing. One. Second, especially with the UX that people can play around, right? It's always a natural preference to go for the darker button, where you put the I share only specific data in the lighter button, and then move that share all the data in the to the darker button, and then unconsciously I've ended up clicking, and then I'm like, oh, what did I do? So those kind of things have happened. So how do you kind of mitigate those things from a customer experience point of view, or what should companies probably do there?
See, that's where I emphasize a lot on transparency. That is where you're communicating those information. At the same time, what you need to do is educate the customers, right? When you educate the customers about what information that the customers are actually going to be sharing and what am I going to be doing with these pieces of information, then you'll realize that the trust factor actually increases, right? Then the end customers would start trusting. In fact, if you'd notice certain brands, where your customer retention is very, very high. Taking an example of, say, someone like Snowflakes, right? Snowflakes has an net recurring revenue, or say a repeat of around 165%, which is really, really high, in a SaaS industry. At the same time, Tatas are always known for getting a lot of repeat business. It is because of the way you try communicating it, at the same time educating your customer, right? So educating your customer actually helps, which I realize that many brands do not understand the importance of educating your customer. And that's something which would be really important to make sure that the business houses are growing with the help of these pieces of information.
Got it. Got it. Karthik, a question to you. What ethical considerations should company keep in mind when handling customer data, according to you?
I think just to give you an example, nowadays we get a lot of calls from property builders constantly wanting to sell property. I noticed it was not only I was getting, and this has increased very recently. And so many of my colleagues, when I talk to them about this, they report this, that various property houses in Pune, and there was one property builder who recently called me, and he was like trying to sell his property, and he said, "Sir, you can actually buy it." He said, as if indicating he knew what I have assets with me, and he was more confident that I can buy that, perhaps even I was. So I started feeling that some point there are certain leakages. Maybe I'm still yet to figure out. I am very interested to find this out. How these leakages are happening, where these potential businesses are realizing who their potential clients are, and they're actually doing a good job in terms of their targeted marketing. Phoning the right guy and telling them about the property in the place. So I don't get calls for Bangalore or somewhere, and I'm in Pune for 25 years. So all the calls I get are only for Pune property. Though I don't believe that I have given my data like this on certain websites or not. I was not even searching for properties in the last 5 years, maybe. I'm happy where I am. So I feel that certain ethical practices are not being done somewhere, because of which such leakages are happening, and we get such. So it's a violation of privacy. One thing, of course, is the disturbance of unnecessary phone calls, but more importantly, it means that our financial privacy has been violated at some point. So that's a concern.
So I will add a point to that. The reason, so I've seen this happen right in front of me. Okay, so there is a new jeweler that has opened up on one main street. Okay, they took a small sapling pot, and then went to every saloon they have in the vicinity, and then gave the sapling pot in exchange of the customer data, the phone numbers and names they have. So every salon, every restaurant where you key in your number, put in your numbers in the register, or you call them for an appointment. Everywhere, these guys, right? Whenever they open a retail showroom, they go give them something and be like, "Hey, we just opened up next door. We will give you our customer data so that they can come here for your services, and then can we do a barter system?" This happens. This is how. So intentionally, I write the last 3-4 numbers wrong, or I say I don't want to give you the number. So I don't want to give you the number because already there is a gazillion. Like I have about 250 numbers that I've blocked. And every time somebody calls me from an anonymous number, I block it, and it keeps coming. So I don't think it's happening in the corporate scale, because you guys, data is your oil, and it's where everybody makes money. I don't think it's happening at a company level. It's happening in small leakages. That's why somebody who is getting it from a salon in Pune will call you only for a Pune property, will not call you for a Delhi property, because it doesn't happen at this level.
No, in fact, that's not the case. It happens, right? So that's the reason, that's the reason I would suggest that there needs to be strict guidelines around info security, right? So, which at the end of the day helps each and everyone, both the business houses and also the individual customers.
See, one interesting point, Gautam. See, all of this, all right, will be sorted out, or will streamline if the organization in question. We are speaking about personalization, and I said personalization revolves around relevance as the most important keyword, right? It has always happened in the offline retail world as well. We go to the shopkeeper who's very clear that, hey, you know what, it's the first of the month. If Gautam is coming to my shop, I know what are the grocery items his mom buys every month. So you know what, I'm going to sort of treat him in a special way, relevant to Gautam and his purchasing interest. All right. So if we are speaking about data, if the vision of the person personalizing, or the organization or the platform doing personalization, if the vision is very clear that, hey, you know what, I'm in it only to sort of be relevant to this person, all right, and relevance is again a moving goalpost. What is relevant today will not be relevant tomorrow. So I have to sort of keep learning about you, keep following you, all of that is fine. But then I'm doing it primarily from the point of view of delighting you as my user or customer. If that vision is clear, all right, then that organization as a whole will not stray into things like, hey, what can I do with this data? Somebody's coming to me with a pot of gold and, or a sapling. Let me give it to that person, my list of phone numbers. If you have vision clarity and that is held strongly by the leadership, then it will percolate into the team as well. And then we don't have, things going astray.
I think it also depends on how much of trust does a consumer have on a brand, right? So, for example, like you walk into your saloon, maybe you would now start questioning that, hey, is my data, and first of all, is it relevant for me to give my phone number here, right? That's number one. Number two, even if it's a different service provider, it's not your saloon, how much trust do you have with that brand to actually share your data, right? And that's where I think he spoke about how brands actually are trying to build that trust. And if you're a new brand, how do you over communicate, educate the consumer in terms of what are you going to do with that data? Because that becomes very critical, and only then will a person say, okay, there is a chance that I might get, let's say, a personalized offer, a personalized communication, which is relevant to me, and hence I will share my data, right? So that's why I think people are a little more circumspect, saying ki, if I'm going into a saloon, do I really need to share my phone number here? Like, is it really relevant here? Trust becomes a very important thing.
Every store they ask me my phone number, I say no, skip it. There is an option to skip it.
Yeah.
A lot of people, just because they ask, they end up giving. And for me especially, with Safari being the primary browser, right? I don't get these cookie based ads anymore, and people are paying so they don't see any ads, whether it is personalized or not. So now you will have to be more. You want the user to get an interest in your offering, and then subscribe himself, and then come on your platform or get your newsletter or something, and then do it from there. So,
but again, if you'd see, specifically in terms of recommendations, CRM and others, at the end of the day, love it or hate it, Most of the loyalty programs actually have their unique identifier as a mobile number. So if you want to actually get in personalized recommendation,
Right.
so by default, your mobile number is something
Yes.
which gets captured as a part of the business practice, so that by default you will get in recommendation, and mobile is now the best medium to share in relevant offers at the relevant time. So by default, mobile number at the end of the day is slowly and gradually becoming the next unique identifier for an individual.
Through that,
I'll just give an example in my field how I'm sometimes I'm pushed actually to violate privacy of some people. So I'm a placement officer, right? So I have hundreds of HR contacts with me since 8 years. So there are media houses that rank colleges all over India for placements. Everyone is aware of
Correct.
that. So whenever we have to apply to any media house, this is the non-government ones. There are many private players who rank. The first thing they ask us is the entire data. They want the company name is okay, okay, Accenture, I just have to list their company names, but they want to know the HR man, the manager there, his phone number, his email ID. That's where I have had a lot of quarrels on this with people who ask me, because I feel that it's not ethical on my part to share my HR contacts, phone numbers especially, with a third party media house. Why do you want it? So they say, no, we have to rank you all, so we need it. Okay, so sometimes with a lot of pushing, I sometimes agree, at least for the email ID, because I say, okay, that's not, that intrusive perhaps. But some say no, unless the phone number is given, you're not considered only in this ranking space. So I'm saying this is how data of, people get captured by someone whom they were not interested in, right? So suppose I have his number, let's say, and we are exchanging students for internships or placement, and some media house is asking me, and if I give his number, so I have basically violated his privacy. So this is how it happens actually, which I'm also not sure what is the solution, but this is how it is.
you're saying who you should be careful who you give your number to, not just the companies, to the people you're related. Because I think certain apps, especially the fintech, ask access for contacts.
Yes.
So there are the shady lending companies, right?
Definitely.
So once you share the contacts, not just in fintech, even if you play games, right? If you share your contacts, you get certain credits for the game you play, for the app you use, for whatever that is. In certain places, they give you some money or credit coins so that you can, trade it off for monetary value when you share your contact books. So who your number is with is also going to be a very big
Massive.
ploy this thing.
But Gautam, actually, one thing on the fintech part, right? I think fintechs did such a bad job at privacy, at just maintaining customer privacy for so long, that finally the regulator woke up one fine day and said, "Boss, party's over," and they did it primarily. Karthik is from Pune, right? Right near the airport is India's largest NBFC. And I'm not going to name them because they are my largest partner. But more importantly, they are Salesforce. They are the second largest client to Salesforce globally.
Okay.
Why? They have 100 million data points on every single guy. Who has that? None of us. Four of us combined don't have that.
Yeah.
And that's because they misutilized it for so long. And now, because you as a customer, as a potential customer, has that kind of mindset that fintech has a tendency to violate my privacy, that the trust has been lost with client, trust has been lost with regulator. So now what's happened is every single fintech, irrespective of size, I can guarantee that to you, irrespective of size, all the way to the NBFCs, insurance houses and banks, is audited twice to thrice a year by the regulator, and insanely heavy audits. And that's where they have RBI coming in. RBI deputes it to PwC, KPMG and the likes, and they come into your house and they stay there for a good 3 months, taking out every single thing you can imagine, right? So now we're actually so scared. Fintech is terrified of data. I can tell you, at least in our own office, how we look at data is, boss, what is required to ship this product out, right? That minimum data, give it to me, what I'm legally allowed to hold, how long am I allowed to hold it, you sign it, you audit it, and I'm done. As long as I sold this product, customer is happy with the experience, customer is on my platform, I'm done. I don't want another inkling of data. And that's where fintechs have really come to today. It's insane.
It should be a nightmare.
Yeah.
You wake up in the morning and then there is some notification and then you have to change your business model. But before we get on to the talent, but students are very interested in fintech. You guys pay big bucks, is it?
I'll tell you the key issue over there, right? I think that's a Bangalore issue. So I can tell you, when we hire and this is, as informally as I can say, that when I see a resume come from Bangalore and he works in Whitefield, Maratalli, Indranagar especially, I know for a fact that this guy is going to come to me with such an ask that he's going to be probably 2.5x of every other candidate on the roster, right? And I think that's just a mentality that's going to be washed away so soon, right? Because in 2021-22, fintechs raised an absurd amount of money, more than they really knew what to do with. And when they had that, they were just hiring people for the like of it, right? And now I think fintechs, the well is kind of drying, where at the very bottom of the pool, people are kind of bending it here and there to get the last few drops. And now, even at least in our practice as well, we've really gone out of our way. So the majority of our student fresher onboardings come from tier 2 Andhra, tier 2 Rajasthan, and and tier 2 Gujarat. Absolutely fantastic candidates. I will tell you, skill wise, much better than tier 1. Expectations far more realistic, and I will tell you, they'll push 10 times harder than the guy that comes from Whitefield. That's a guarantee.
Oh, that has happened. I wanted to, before we get in talent piece, is it, like in stock market,
Yeah.
the big guys dump stocks to reduce the price. So similarly, is it talent dumping that is happening right now if you look at it, so that people come, because it's not good for any business to have the wages increasing constantly,
Yeah.
at that too at a exponential level. So is it a conscious decision that companies are being wary of hiring talent at higher price, or companies want the employees' expectation to come down? That's why, do you see a dry patch in the talent space right now?
No, it's like the stock market, right? When funding is hot, industry is hot, money is flowing in, hire. Funding is gone, market is down, sales are not happening, stop hiring like this. And that's exactly, even if you just take a 5-year piece, right? 2020 to now, 2019 to now, and you just take out that slice and you analyze it and take a look at it like a stock graph, right? Your In 2020, 2021, you had people paying, for example, when the industry average PE price earnings was 20, you had a guy buying stock or employee at 100 PE, right? Because he expected ROI at 1000 PE. So it's a mentality was very different. So you had bull market on drugs in 2021, and today you have bear market with caution. It's negative, double negative, right? So that's always going to be there. And I think that as soon as we see the next bull market happen, it's going to happen again, because as soon as you have an idea, a fintech has, or any other company has an idea, and on pitch deck you get $5 million, $10 million. You don't know what to do with it, right? You have to build the team, and if you're not going to scale, then boss, you're not going to get the $20 million check.
Yeah, I'll just caveat that, right? Like, if you look at last year, right, and literally the funding scenario was very, very different from how it was like 5 years back, or 2, 3 years back. I think what's happened, because there was not too much deployment last year, there is still a lot of dry powder with the VC, right? So it's not that they're not deploying. The question is that the VCs are now just not looking at hyper growth, they're looking at profitability. Now, once you look at profitability, EBITDA, contribution margin, etc., the first thing that any CFO would do is look at costs. And that's when hiring at high cost comes into question, right? Saying that, okay, today if we are profitability focused, then how can we ensure that employee cost is also down to the bare minimum? So then all costs get tightened, right? Because today the focus, or even what investors are asking for, is profitability, and then all costs start getting questioned. Okay, why did we make hires at XYZ cost? Can we rationalize this, and so on? So that also, I think, to some extent impacts, let's say, the hiring that you do in terms of fresh intake.
This is a pattern that I've observed, that given that per capita has crossed $2,500 in India as well, this is exactly where the US started hyper growth. The China started hyper growth, and I see a thing in India as well now that the expectations from employees are very higher, very high, and then they want a lot more from the companies. Is it time that we increase the prices to the consumer, or is it time that we focus on only reducing prices or the cost in salaries?
See, if you see, India is a very cost sensitive market, right? So finding a perfect balance is actually going to be difficult. So you will need to be very cautious when you're increasing your prices for the end customers. At the same time, you can't ignore about technology, because India is also the hub for technology all put together. So you'll have to have a perfect balance between both and slowly try and grow both these parameters together. I feel that's going to be the submission.
I believe it's become worse, and that segment of customers are kind of going away. So if you look at Bangalore, you're always on the queue for pubs. Okay, no matter how many pubs you open on 100 feet road, you're never in dearth of anything, and people get bored fast also. So I believe that slowly increasing the prices. The cost of living is also going up because if you look at it, uh, you could make 10x what you made at India, probably a decade ago in the US. Right now, it's only about 4x. And if you're willing to wash your vessels and clean your floors yourself, then you can go to the US, or else India is a better place.
Yeah, Gautam, but I still like just going off him. I think the one thing that I truly firmly believe, right? The Indian customer is significantly more elastic than is the Indian employee,
Right.
right? Just before we started, we got a data point that we have 1.5 lakh engineers coming out of
Correct.
Maharashtra per year,
Correct.
right? Supply is in abundance.
Right.
I have to be steadfast on my vision for profitability. That was whatever happens, here's my budget on payroll, right? Above this, no. Below this, fantastic, right? I have that. You have to be so steadfast on clarity. But as soon as you break it out to consumer, right, try to levy that cost on the consumer, I think it's very elastic. I think that suddenly you'll see so many more competitors come in, and
Absolutely.
then and all the
It's going
clients
to
are
be
just
very
going to
difficult.
just
And with
disappear.
WhatsApp penetration, happening across all the tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities, towns and villages. So you can't fool a customer now. That's going to be very difficult. And you will see that your competitors are actually reaching out to your customers now and then. So you can't tell that whatever I am giving is actually the supreme is of supreme quality. So it is going to be difficult to find that perfect balance. So I would rightly agree that you need to actually work on costs, and that's where fresh talents also come in, right? You can realize that new folks who are just getting graduated, they then come into this pool, they do their hard work, and then they realize that, hey, you know what, probably instead of me spending 5x 5x with a resource who knows x amount of things, why not I spend say 5x lawyer and train him or her, and then accordingly make sure that my job is done. So I feel it's a balance there.
Fair point. So, Gautam, see, it's not directly a cost price game, right? The Indian consumer, the Indian citizen, the way we have kind of come to be, we are very value conscious. Value is important for us. We are not, I would say, as much cost conscious as we are value conscious. We will go in for something higher in cost if the value trade off kind of plays out, right? So that is where I think we are at that inflection point, when there is talent in abundance, all right, and there are problem statements also in abundance, all right. And again, then you have things like this which we are speaking about today, which is personalization, which is being more relevant. I think companies would be ready to pay candidates all they are asking for, if you are able to sort of be relevant to the person on the other side and deliver the value they're looking for, because customers are also in abundance. All right, we are not looking at a place where there is a dearth of any of the resources, including capital. All right, so if you are able to sort of position yourself in a way that you're able to do value delivery to the last or most important stakeholder in the best way possible, I think employee costs shouldn't be an issue over there.
Got it. Now moving to the talent piece, right? I wanted to understand, because although AI is taking over, I believe talent is the most critical cornerstone of every company that'll kind of set it apart, whether it is a leadership or this thing. In terms of experience talent, right, Abhishek, what are the best practices to attract and integrate experienced talent within your workforce?
First and foremost, the most important thing is just have a clear JD, right? What exactly is expected out of an individual? Do not have gray areas. Clearly state what is going to be the key responsibility areas, what are the KPIs an individual is actually going to be driving. That is the starting point. If you have that clarity of communication, then you'll realize that you'll get the right talent at the right cost at the right time. That's going to be the first and the most important thing. Second is when there is going to be a combination of, say, experienced resources versus your new fresh talent, a lot of mentorship is actually required. So when there is mentorship given to those all fresh talents, then you'll realize that it is going to be beneficial for the company. That's going to be important. Apart from that, understanding the industry best practices in terms of compensation is going to be important. Say if a CMO of a retail fashion house is given X amount, so you can't tell that, hey, you know what, I'm going to give this person X minus say X minus 2 lakh rupees. You'll realize that even the individuals are also becoming really really cautious because they understand the market trends, what exactly is going in the market. So these all things need to be clear and as per the industry standard. Apart from that, you need to also make sure that each and every time there needs to be a flexibility in the work environment, which automatically attracts talents, let it be fresh talent or say probably experienced folks. At the same time, what you need to also focus is the culture essence needs to be kept, because this automatically helps in terms of attracting all those talents at the right time. So these are going to be certain key vital areas where we need to focus to make sure that we attract the right talent.
Got it. Got it. Thanks, Abhishek. So, Aditya, what are the benefits of bringing lateral hires into the team versus bringing in fresh hires?
I think for lateral hires, it just depends on the stage, right? Or the position itself. The higher the position, the harder it gets, right? So let's say, for example, we as a fintech startup are trying to hire someone from a very large bank to come in and lead a particular vertical. It's actually not really a lateral hire, right? It's so tilted that we wouldn't imagine, because no, apart from the expectation of wage and everything economic about the position, what you're looking at is this person that you're trying to attract coming in into a similar role uh, in terms of responsibility comes into your startup and is skewed because of the lack of process compared to this massive behemoth of an institution. The lack of process, the kind of things that they've been used to for such a long time, and it takes so long for them to really get into the program. But as long as the person that you're trying to laterally hire has a certain mindset, a mindset to get in, kind of plug and play, be entrepreneurial in their own sense, nothing like it. Because then what you're actually getting is so much more. When you're actually acquiring that person for X, for example, you're getting 1.5 or 2x, right, in terms of value, because you're getting all of that experience as one, as the core value of it all in base nominal value, and the delivery and the execution and ability mindset is just compounding that significantly more. So it's such a good thing when you're able to laterally hire with good mindset. But I think higher and higher positions compared to higher bigger institutions, the harder it gets.
I see this trend that once a person has spent 10-15 years in a very process oriented organization, right,
Yeah,
it is very difficult for them to come out of it because everything is taken care.
correct.
And in a startup world or in in a tech world, it's very, very nascent, and every other day, like, there is a new technology or a new language that is coming up every second year,
Yeah.
and then you are outdated if you're just not coping up with it.
Correct.
So, is there a balance to that, or, it's just because what I'm thinking is that, people are fast becoming, should retire at 45. If they are still an individual contributor,
Yeah.
if they are a person who can pull along a team, then they should work beyond 45. Or else beyond 45, I think, if a person does not exhibit leadership potential, I don't see much value for that person, because he can slot in less hours. He can slot in, he has more problems to handle. He has more commitments. Then there is no ROI for me, is what I look
Correct.
at.
But work at a startup is you bang your head against the wall every day and you come back next day with a smile. Right? That's the job. Right. But again, it depends on what kind of institution that you're looking to hire from. For example, today we build technology for two particular companies, right? For many other companies, but I'm giving two examples. One is a international bank sponsored NBFC, massive. Almost every country on the planet, they're there. Huge presence in India. Top level bank. Very slow, very, very slow culture. Like and I can tell you, my sales cycle there for one particular SaaS product was 13 months. Like insanely long, right? At one point, I even asked him, boss, is this even in your roadmap? Like 8 trips to Bombay I've done, like, and I've had chai 6, 7 times. What are you doing? And because he's from Ajio, we built for the financial services arm, we built the capital markets lending tech over there. We just launched last week. So there, if I was to take it there, mentality is so aggressive. Fantastic team, right? I could probably take anyone over there, whether super senior, super junior, doesn't matter. Take someone in, plug it into a startup of our scale, and they'd get going. So it all depends on the kind of institution, the mentality over there, how aggressive you are.
Yeah.
Does it really match the ethos of your parent entity? And as long as the match is anything above, to be very honest, anything above 0.75 correlation, you're okay.
Fitment is the keyword, Gautam, more than talent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add my 2 cents, right? Like, it's one is of course fitment of that person into the organization. It's also about, and I was reading this article, when let's say a senior lateral hire comes into a startup, right? It's like a heart transplant, right? You have to prepare the body also for the heart to come in, right? Which means that how and there are ways and processes of doing this, saying that it's not that you just hire somebody and you found it through the panel and you're bored, right, and you get them on board. Can there be a 2-3 month long engagement that can be structured between this person coming in and the let's say the startup, and how do you build that engagement to see, is there a culture fit, is there a quality fit, is there acceptance, right? Because all of these things become critical when somebody at least from a senior lateral position enters a startup, to actually say that, okay, will this person come in and start delivering value maybe 6 months down the line, right? So all of this, like, even the org needs to prepare, and so does the person who's coming in from the other place. So it's like it's mutual, is what I would say.
I believe that it's more in the DNA of the person. If he's a more of a startup kind of a guy, right, then it's easier to integrate. Whether he's if he's been an entrepreneur even in a very big organization,
correct, 100%.
it's easier to integrate that person versus even if he's a process oriented guy from a startup, it doesn't kind of work. And
Yeah, it's a personality thing. Yeah.
I see that a lot of places, what happens is the board decides, okay, this guy is not good, changes the CXO. Okay, then what happens is that is the only thing that is reported on the media. Okay, the CXO comes in with the 3 of his guys, and then the next 3 guys are replaced. Then the SVPs kind of, VPs kind of replace the managerial level. This entire organizational seep through that happens at a CXO level will take 8 months to promulgate. In 8 months' time, you've changed the DNA of the entire organization. So a CXO switch at a lateral level that you're doing is going to change the entire organization. Housing.com was one fantastic example of that.
Right.
Long back, we're talking about it. The moment it was changed, even BharatPe for that matter, the moment, the leadership changes, people are accustomed to working in one certain environment. I think lateral hires more at a junior level, say 5-10 years, it's okay. But when you're doing it at a top level,
Correct.
I believe you should have consensus of everybody, even if one person disagrees, kind of drop it. So when we do lateral hires for GCCs at a leadership level, right, we kind of make them talk to even the people who will report to them at say N-3 level,
Yeah.
and see if their values all align. And we also, we don't call it a psychometric test, but we call it a more personality matching thing, that we make the person who is hiring and the person who is joining take up to see if there is a fitment.
Correct.
Or else in the long run it would kind of fall apart, right? So
I feel one key thing which is really underrated, both from an organizational standpoint and an individual standpoint, is adaptability. Right? If an individual is not able to adapt in that environment, then you realize that that's not going to be the right fit. At the same time, even for an organization, if they, I mean, it is just not about an individual. At the end of the day, it's like a marriage, right? There needs to be a marriage between both these systems, an individual and the ecosystem where an individual is actually going to fit. So that adaptability is something which is going to be very important at the end of the day.
Got it. And now, one of the most critical problems in India, 1 crore people joining the workforce every year, and no company has even a level to, match up that. So, with a lot of fresh talent coming in, how do they, because for a lot of fresh talent nowadays, job is not even their option one. Okay. So that said, if somebody wants to have a career and grow in that, wanted to ask your thoughts on that. So, Karthik, what do you think supports the career growth of fresh graduates?
Yeah, and this is an important one. So I think I'll allude to what Abhishek referred to, right? I think mindset is very important, right? Because when you're fresh out of college, I think the first thought that you have is, okay, I'm done with my learning, right? I think that needs to fundamentally change, right? As a fresher, when you come into, actually your learning is just beginning. It's just that the environment is changing, right? From a structured, formal way of learning, which happens in a school and college, you now have to learn multiple things where you're not being coaxed to learn, right? I think fundamentally that mindset, I think, needs to change, or at least shift, because you have to learn from your peers, you have to learn from your mentors, you have to learn from your manager, you have to learn from the people around you, right? So I think it's very critical, very imperative to have a learning mindset as you are entering into the workforce. And I think the second thing that I would, in my point of view, right, is what I would share with freshers is that always look at whatever you're doing, how is it contributing to the big picture, right? Because once you start, right, probably a couple of weeks into your first job, first assignment, you'll be given a task, right? And then, of course, you are enthusiastic and you want to do it, etc. You get into the details of the task. But I think what's relevant is every once in a while to take a step back and say, how is it contributing towards, say, the consumer, say, the company's organization, the vision? Like, what am I contributing towards in terms of me doing my particular task, right? And that helps you to sometimes break the rut of, oh, what am I doing? Is it meaningful, and so on and so forth, right? Because I see that also come sometimes when freshers are, let's say, a year into the system. But it's always helpful to take your task, take a step back and say, how is it contributing to the bigger picture? And I think the last thing I would say is that have fun as you're doing, what you're doing, right? Because it's very important that when you learn to enjoy your work is when you actually, start really enjoying it, right? And of course, there's a lot of talk in terms of, startups being aggressive, demanding a lot, etc. But until you really learn how to enjoy the grind, right, it'll be very hard for you to really grow and scale in any organization, whether it's startup or a big one. So I think these are the 2-3 things I would advise.
So for, like, say, for fresh talent who wants to grow very fast, startup is a great space. If they want a kickback kind of a lifestyle, it's better they go into a very traditional organization with 3-year, 5-year career growth maps.
So Gautam, I would say even that is changing, right? Like, even if you look at traditional organizations, right, today, who are they competing with, right? If they are not reinventing themselves, there'll be somebody else knocking at the doors tomorrow, right? From an org perspective. So even the traditional organizations, I won't say probably, of course, the agility can be in question, but I would say that they are also in some shape and form trying to demand more productivity, more output, more ROI from every person who's there in the org, right? So I don't think one should enter the workforce with a point of view that, hey, I'm here to chill for a while. I think that will be detrimental to their own career growth.
I agree, but that's how I see the pattern and the way most of the talent is that they want more. When you talk to these kids right out of college, the way they talk is completely different. It's on a parallel universe. So they talk about work life balance. They talk about with this amount of money, will I be able to have my pub days out? Will I be able to have my can I go out on weekdays? Can I flexibly work from my home? So those are the kind of questions that I've been asked when I talk to the student fraternity. So that is also changing. I think rather in saying that this should be the different attitude, I think organizations will also have to kind of fit in. That is what I believe, at
See,
least.
that's, I mean, specifically, taking into consideration this entire Gen Z attitude, that's how, multiple fashion houses versus your multiple companies have tried tweaking their cultural element around it. That's where flexibility comes into play. That's where a lot of rewards and recognition comes into play, where they're trying to slowly, get in these parameters where they get that fresh talent at the same time they get their work done, right? So it is a combination of things, right? So slowly and gradually slowly and gradually this is something which is going to be an essence. See, you can't uh, deny to the fact that you would require fresh talent to have a new fresh perspectives. If you see multiple path breaking ideas that's come in the present day, you'll realize that there is a contribution from fresh talent somewhere or other in order to you know give that idea a specific reality picture, right? So that's, I feel it's going to be a combination. Slowly and gradually every generation gets into this, and it is going to be a practice for both the organization and the fresh talent.
Got it. Anand, coming to you, right? As a leader, how do you look at mentoring, and
Yeah.
what role does mentoring play in a professional's career growth journey today?
See, I am very people focused, and love to sort of work with teams, not just at work, but also engaging with my alma maters, both at ISB and VIT, to be able to sort of be of help to students wherever I can. So, as leaders, right, what do we want here? We want to build a healthy work environment, right? We want to sort of, I would say, have a healthy culture of collaboration, all right, where the person feels empowered and kind of is motivated to sort of go for the goal beyond what is written on paper. All right, we want to sort of, I would say, build that culture where ideas are exchanged. We are not very transactional in terms of this is the work, you do it, and and move on. All of this um is pretty much focused around the fact that we want a healthy leadership pipeline, all right, which is in time ready to take over and take the vision forward of the organization. So mentorship, I think, mentoring in general technically plays that role, right outside of an institution. When a person comes in, and even when you are in an educational institution, how do you sort of I would say prepare yourself and say that, hey, you know what, these are the kind of leaders out there. Here's how I can focus on, here's what's happening in this industry, and get yourself I would say ready for what's next. I would say that is what, for a student, it does a lot of I would say calibration and setting as they land into industry. And for leaders, it pretty much would occupy a very important position in the organizational setting, because that's what eventually has to sort of contribute to running your organization in the healthy way. It's good to see that a lot of mentoring is now being formally kind of pushed in, where the organization as well as the institutes kind of knock on both the alumni and the senior leadership's doors and say that, hey, you know what, spend time, we need you to sort of pick up one mentee and work with him or her. But I think as we go forward, all of us have not naturally ended up where we are, right? It has been
Journey.
part chance, part, getting a good mentor, who could hold our hands and pull us up. So a large part of mentorship as a leader is also about, hey, you know what, I need to give this back. I need to go back and do to 10 others what someone at some point in time did to me. Could help me out at the right point in time. So that I would say, is the importance of it in the organization and in general in the Indian context today.
Got it. Got it. So, Karthik, from an academic standpoint of view, what do you think are the best practices for mentorship that you would recommend companies that are looking for fresh talent?
Increasingly, I've noticed that many companies, whenever companies come to hire from us, they give a talk initially to the students. And that actually turns out to be very important because that is the beginning of the mentorship, to align them to company values. And in recent times, I had at least a couple of more people, who are talking to the students saying that, hey, at 21, when they graduate out of college, you shouldn't be asking for work life balance. You shouldn't ask for that. And initially, I was not understanding why they are talking. But later, when I was also mentoring some of my students who were interning with some companies, a small fragment, I realized that no, this is important because some students come with this idea that, hey, look, it's an internship, so I'll work Monday to Friday, whatever, 8, 9 hours, and that's it. So we had to tell them, no, though it is understood that by and large it's a 5-day week, once a while you will have to pitch in on a weekend. There will be some deliverables. You'll have to work on a Saturday, Sunday extra. Uh, and we realized that we had to tell that to the students. Initially, I would think that, hey, maybe this is assumed. The students should know that when you join an organization, you will have to pitch in some extra amount of work and you can't stick to 40 or 45 hours. Of course, another thing about the 70 hours that Narayan Murthy spoke of recently. But when I connected all these dots, I realized that this is important. It is part of their mentorship. You need to tell them about the company values. You also need to tell the students about, putting in some extra time, which is actually good for them only because of the beginning of their career. If they actually pitch in that extra time, then maybe 10 years down the line, their value will increase substantially. So we have started focusing a lot on this, both from the college side as well as when companies come, we tell them that we need to talk about this to the students.
True. Most of the talent that are like the top-notch talent that you find in any industry right now slog 16-hour days for like the first 5 years of their career, and then that is where they make that exponential growth. And once you reach that level, then you can work 5 hours a day. It doesn't matter because then how to play around with the circumstances to get the desired output, and to build a second line of leaders as well. But as an individual, that is what it is. But bothersome thing is that I see that most of the people that are coming fresh out of college somehow think that working 5 hours or 3 days is fancy. And I also believe that even one fintech major piloted this idea of 3-day work week.
Yeah.
So I think startups will have to do more of that to attract talent and to solve India's employment crisis. If you make it a 3-day work week, right, then you double employment overnight.
I think, Gautam, education is evolving. Why is the student saying that? Right. First question is, why is the student thinking like that? In my opinion, it's because it is the duty of education to create empathy towards business. Right. If it's a business school, for example, or any form of any vertical that you're in, create empathy for the business in itself. Right. And how do you do that? You recognize that the majority of the risk over here is taken by, if not the entrepreneur, the business in itself. Right. And the only way to do that is really push them into feeling what it is like, right? To not just run something, but experiment with it, try something out that most of the time fails, right? And be under pressure for some above authority that you're responsible to. And as long as you're willing to, as education, if we're willing to create that empathy, right, in the students, they will not ask for it. I can tell you that, for example, in India today, I was so impressed with Masters Union and STOA, right? Incredible work that they're doing. In the US, Babson College does fantastic work, right? So I think the education in India is evolving. I think it's going to evolve a lot over the next 10 years. And eventually students will stop asking it, because on the mentorship side of it all, right, there's two kind of mentors: low touch, high touch. Low touch is a guide, right, that kind of holds your hand towards the right direction. High touch is a coach that right before the game gets going, he gives you a solid pep talk, and in halftime, no, you either get it or he gives you a shake hand, either or. But that really does work, right? So not just on the educational front. First, prep the student, make sure that he's empathetical, understand in this capitalist society that we live in, who bears the risk, who bears the reward, where it is, and nobody's being unreasonable towards anyone here. More often than not, majority of the time. And on the mentorship side, really attach something that you align to. If you're willing to perform highly with just a guide, go with a guide. If you need someone to really rile you up, get you going every single day, day in, day out, that's your leader. So stick with him.
It is, I come back again because, although this is right,
Yeah.
and I've been through that same grind as what you're talking, but it is also imperative that we understand this new fresh talent is doing a lot more than what we did and is exposed to a lot more than what we were exposed to. And in college, they are exposed to a lot of things and they expect certain unreasonable perks according to us. And, even if you look at the 5-day work week, it's 100 years old. Henry Ford set it up for Ford factories. And, 100 years, a century later, we are thinking that that is right. So when Henry Ford said 5 days and 8 hours, people called him a fool. And today everybody is sticking to the same thing. And I believe, it has to, to solve employment at least, because universal basic income will not solve the problem. You'll just create more crime and lazy people. Rather, you make it a 3-day work week, you have everybody employed at least in some meaningful way or other. And the way I see this economy going towards is that every day morning somebody will get up and they will see a couple of 3-4 notifications on their phone and pick up which job to do. They'll complete it. They'll get paid at the end of the day. And then the next day, so the tenure, like say 25 years in one company, to slowly reducing to 2 to 3 years, because people who stick on in one organization are also not very rewarded. So, it's also the company believes that nobody becomes a prophet in their homeland, right? So company also believes that some external talent will come and do the magic, but not a homegrown talent.
Correct.
So those are all, areas that, companies had to address it from the talent side. So getting into it, so I want to, let's make India more employable. I wanted to understand what are the challenges and opportunities in recruiting fresh talent. I'll throw the floor open and then, what are the challenges specifically when you face in hiring fresh talent, and what are the opportunities that you think where we can capitalize to get good talent?
Massed up resumes, right? For every 100 that you get, 90 are masked up to, they're so powdered, so sugar coated that every single guy or girl looks absolutely fantastic, right? And the recruitment team internally saying, boss, you told me to shortlist, but I have 40 shortlists. I said, that's not even a shortlist, right? What are you talking? So I think that people have to get a bit real, and what that inclines us to do is, it's coming from this channel is legitimate. I can trust this channel, this is where I have to go exact.
Okay.
So I would say, plus one to that, and where that comes from is the students' discomfort, or I would say insecurity, to say that, hey, you know what, I'm so much, so hire me. I think the challenge is, first of all, that, and second is to be able to sort of fit a fresh mind, into a very complex context. And it's up to, I would say, the leadership. It's up to us to first of all bridge that by interacting with with academia a lot. Go to the I would say institute, not just during the placement season but throughout the whole thing. Like to my B school, I keep going pretty much every quarter, and interact with students, identify a lot of talent already. A lot of companies do that. And then you kind of are able to fit context, very well. If you talk about hiring, I would say a fresh person, the opportunity it gives you is, once again, someone with absolute freshness, not from the context you're in, but with a lot of intention, I would say, and readiness to sort of come and work. If you're able to get that guy, that is, that is the beauty of fresh talent. That person can come in and do wonders. But the mentorship has to start much beforehand, and the person has to be handheld, and gotten in, and then also kind of followed through for the first few months or even years, so that if the organization is very serious about growing that person as a leader, through means of a program or through means of a career track channel or whatever they have internally, if the leaders in the organization is investing efficiently into it, I think there's a good I would say opportunity both for the organization to find the right kind of talent which will get into the leadership pipeline, and also for the I would say so-called fresh talent to be able to assimilate and comfortably grow. I would see it that way.
I feel one thing which is not very emphasized in Indian education system is approach of management training, right? A management training program needs to be inculcated at both the ends, right? One at the organization's end so that they get the best talent who again grows up the ladder and helps in companies profitability. At the same time, at the college end also, there needs to be certain management training programs. Say, take for an example, I am more inclined towards one particular role, right? So I need to educate them about it. What does this role really do? Because I realize that, yeah, I mean, the things that I read in the book during my college is not really relevant with what is actually practiced in an organization. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that there are management training programs specifically even at the education institute level, which helps you to understand what are the different type of roles, what is exactly expected from each of these roles, and then work on a plan. Then you'll realize that this automatically somewhere is going to be helpful for both the parties, right? And you'll realize that the fresh talents are doing what they love doing, right? At the same time, organization is getting value from day one. Why? Because the person knows, the student who's just graduated, he knows that what he really is interested in, what he's keen to do, and at the same time he's getting connected with that particular environment where he's going to get that mentorship so that he can upskill himself there in the organization. So I feel this is something which is not talked about, but I feel this is something which can help a lot both the business houses and the education institutes.
In the context of a discussion, what Abhishek is saying is personalization of education, right, for the student. Yeah, and we are actually talking about it.
Right.
It's a very interesting point that he made, because in colleges we are talking, because nowadays, as I was telling earlier, in every college the intake has increased a lot,
Correct.
and that's a challenge actually from colleges perspective, or in general engineering
Correct.
education, or these in India, where the number of engineering graduates is increasing year on year by and large. And also, a student who takes a particular branch, sometimes there are many things that could, like for example, let's take a branch like electronics and telecommunications. There are so many areas in which he or she could go
Correct.
at the end of such a degree. So that's why this type of personalization, this type of exposure, understanding various roles, and preparing becomes important, because the jack of all trades sometimes is not working out
Yes.
when they graduate there. Yeah, and we are conscious of it and we work on it as an education institute. Yeah.
The other thing, maybe I think as an opportunity that I see, right, like more than a challenge, is that like today, I think if you look at most companies, right, they hire freshers not for skill or knowledge, it's largely for attitude, right? Because you can train for skill, you can train for knowledge, you can build that repertoire over a period of time, right? And I think the challenge is when organizations go to campuses is that you have a templatized way of looking at the CV, right? Now, of course, it's obviously for ease and all of that stuff. But today, I think, given there is so much that people can do even before they enter the workforce, right? Whether digitally or doing your own thing, or you've done something on YouTube and things like that, which actually an organization is wanting to see, right? Because it shows that you've not just been within the boundaries and you've tried to do something outside, right? And those are the things I think that freshers should try and exhibit, especially when one, and that I feel is an opportunity for freshers to actually display when actually organizations and campuses come. So I think is something that students should think about.
True to that. So, a lot of companies, if you see, 0 to 3 years is when you are investing in the candidate,
Yeah.
rather the candidate, giving you returns. and the average tenure of the candidate is less than 2 years.
Yeah.
So basically, you get the short end of the stick for training somebody for somebody else, right? So when looking at this from a more from a practical approach, what you're calling of management trainees or internships or whatever that is, should it not be that at least 50% of the education should be on, like, say, if it's a 2-year MBA, 1 year they should spend in industry where they cannot run away anywhere, or if it's a 4-year engineering degree, you know enough of books, because the education, the reason education or learning is a bad word is because you are pitted against a pen drive. So how much can you memorize, how much can you reproduce? That is why education and learning is a bad word. People think that I'm done with education because they don't like exams. What we have in real world is an open book exam where the answer is out there. You just have to go and explore, find it, and implement it, or if not, course correct it, right? So don't you think more industry projects, internships, these are all kind of important? What do you think should be done more from the college side? They should not be like, hey, you complete all your papers and then do whatever you want. Something more like, okay, if you're doing that, we will do the waive off of this thing. And should there be a regulatory thing? I'm just curious. What
I
do
think you hit the nail on the head when you said exams, right? I think a lot of students, at least, and this I think stems right before, let's say, they enter graduation, post graduation. It starts from school and so on, where there is typically a fear of, okay, I have to pass my exams and hence I'm learning, right? I think a lot of what the college, and I'm sure a lot of colleges are doing this really well, is create the environment of learning which is not necessarily outcome driven by exam result, right? And that can be the way you test, right? It need not necessarily be an exam that you're writing, but are there other projects that you demonstrate? Are there, like you said, internships that you can do to show that, hey, I am building my skill and knowledge base, and as a result of that, this is the way to evaluate, right? So I would say, can there be more creative methods of evaluation, which is not necessarily a end semester exam where you have to sit one day before and mug up an entire textbook, but are there other ways to evaluate the student about what he's done over the 6 months, about the trimester or the year? I think that's something that can be relooked at.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing. At our place, we have done something which Ananth may like to know, that in recent times, the autonomy that we have been given, for every course, we have 6 parameters that contribute to the evaluation. Okay, so written exams are only one. And of course, they themselves are like 2 written exams. One is objective, one is subjective. But besides the written exam, there are a group discussion that students have to present on some topic related. There is a individual one-on-one presentation for every subject. So in every subject, the curriculum is divided in such a way that some curriculum students only are going to peer teach learn by presentations. Then there is a viva, there is a project in every course, there are labs associated with every course that have some weightage, and finally there is the written paper and the objective. So this actually colleges have started realizing and doing as well. Where now it's no longer like how it was 25, 30 years back, where we had just a 100-mark theory exam you would write for 3 hours, and everything was decided based on that. Colleges are increasingly moving out of that.
What is the weightage for examinations?
No, so these weightages are all pretty equal. So so all these 6 components. Of course, the group discussion presentation would have slightly lesser. Maybe the written exams would still have 30% weightage, but it's not more than 30%.
Oh, that's
Everything else contributes 70. The course project becomes very important, because now it's more most of the colleges, we have grading system, right? So we grade a student on a 10-point scale. So only 30% comes from written exam, maximum. Other parameters which I said, they all have some contribution.
So one point, on your previous question, right? It's important that institute, and industry work together for the student to establish purpose very early, as soon as they get into, the institute. Establishing purpose means finding, hey, what have I gotten into? I didn't just clear a hurdle and of a cutoff and get into a fancy institute, without even being able to define what is that fanciness of the so-called institute, and then what are the options in front of me, right? If institute and industry kind of work together, and say that, hey, you know what, you have gotten into, say, like he said, electronics engineering, right? Here's what electronics is, all right? And here's this person from say a really big semiconductor company, and that's the upcoming field in India. Here's the 10 things you can do, all right? You're excited, do that for the next 1 year, focus with these alumni, speak to them, have a cup of coffee with them when they are in town, and this, that, and the other. See, dig that hole and see, if you find kind of interest there. Otherwise, you know what? Here's what you can do. Start your own thing. All right, self-employment, entrepreneurship. You can do 100 things over there. All right, and here are some alumni. Here are some examples. These are the people you get to speak to. All of that. All right. Again, go down that hole. See if it works for you or not. You have 4 years in engineering, right? Third one is things like research, and academia. There are professors in the institute itself who have kind of dedicated their life to it. Um, Again, you can have people from around the world who are, I would say, subject matter experts, who can come in and say that, hey, you know what, this is the exciting thing about pursuing and I would say a very I would say single agenda within electronics. Go deep in it, write your thesis, become the absolute expert in that, and this is what that gets you. Do your PhD and stuff like that, and this is what that gets you. So here are your 100 options. I know you are equally excited, with all of these, and then you have a mentor come in and say that, hey, you know what, this is how you connect the dots. Start with this and then see what happens, and so on and so forth. So you have student establishing purpose very early on, or at least intending to establish purpose, and then his journey starts from there. As against someone who is not really sort of focused on establishing that purpose, kind of comes in and goes with the flow, saying that, hey, you know what, 3 saal mein there is a placement. Oh no, so what happens in placement? This company comes in, takes you at this cutoff, and then you need to score so much. He or she ends up scoring that much. Will end up getting there also, but purpose is missing. So I would say,
Yeah. So one thing as a training placement officer, one change I have noticed drastically in recent past is very few companies are now coming and directly taking students just for placement. This idea of just coming and taking a job, it is reducing year on year. Almost 80% now are hiring only if you successfully do an internship in their company. Otherwise, they will not take you. So this is increasing. This was just, I would say, 6 years back, it was just 10%. Today, it's almost 70-75%. That's how it has increased. Right. So, and more colleges, especially we are at Vishwakarma, we have been pioneers at it. We started our internship program way back in 2010-11. Today, we have a facility where a student can even do a 1-year internship, a full-time internship in final year. So, all the courses are done in the first 3 years, and the final year is a full-time internship. And almost a majority of my students get jobs only through this. So, there is an onus on the student to perform. So you were saying earlier, right? For 2-3 years, a fresher comes, he doesn't contribute, and then so these kind of steps actually solve that. Because 1 year, if a student has to first of all, that 1 year he or she is stuck. I mean, as in that's part of the academics. They're going to get credits for it, so they have to do that well, and they can't move out of that company for a year. And when they perform, they get integrated with the team. They're there only. I mean, so many of our students are in Bangalore only, actually, in the final year of engineering. They're sitting here and doing their internship, or in several other places all over the world now. So the internship is a full-time activity where the student spends the time, and that 1 year is full-time. And by that time, they actually get integrated. In fact, I'll tell you now, some companies now recently at Schlumberger, so what they have done, very interesting initiative. At third year level, they identify some students and they allocate an industry mentor, where that mentor is like a coach for 6 months. Okay, so this happens in the 6th semester. So that mentor is only coaching the student in terms of, okay, these are your interests, this is how you should take this, these are the tracks, these are the extra courses maybe you need to study besides your regular academics. So 6 months of coaching happens, and then that company only is going to take the student as an intern. So there is a pre-internship now which has begun. IT companies, they do hackathons. as part
Right,
of this pre-internship model. They put the student on a hackathon, 24 hours, whatever, and then multiple hackathons, and then so that becomes like a coaching. But core companies, product companies, etc., they have this idea of coaching a student for 6 months, which is like a part time, and the student is doing the course maybe just 1 hour or something. The industry mentor has several students under him or her whom they coach, give some direction, and then the student comes on an internship. So why companies started doing this? Because they felt that we want the student to start contributing on day one when they're an intern. Not that they come in as an intern and there again there is a 3-4 month gap where we have to invest in them. So that coaching, pre-intern coaching takes care of that. So I'm saying that so essentially, see, it's a two-way partnership. So colleges are open to ideas, to changes, but I'm very happy that many companies are also coming forward with such ideas. When I never had this idea, when this company told me that we want to coach the student in third year, second semester, so I felt it's a very good, positive looking idea. So like that.
Yeah. Got it. So I also wanted to ask this question, especially in India, recommendation is looked very down, looked down upon if you look at it, and focus only on the skills aspect of it and not the attitude or the interpersonal skills. So students come out thinking that if they know their technology bit a little or even enough, so they should be employed irrespective of how they behave or how they interact. And interpersonal skills is at the last rung of importance in in an educational institution. And so whereas in the US, pleasing your professor is a part of your course. If you don't please your professor, you how will you please your boss? So your boss may not be the most likable person, but still you will have to please your boss and do what he says, right? So that is a part that is missing in our education system. So how do you think about that part? How important, as in, I believe interpersonal skills is at the top of the pyramid, and then everything else follows. Whether you're a likable person, that is more important than whether you're a skilled person. So how do you think academic institutions can kind of integrate that into the whole mix of things?
I think as much as possible, institutions do it to a sense, right? Especially in India. India is just so fantastically diverse. I'd love to hear the data from Vishwakarma on the number of states that you represent, right? The number of students, the number of states that are there, the different socioeconomic backgrounds that they come from, everyone in one class. I think by nature, there is a level of professionalism and cordiality that you are embedded with, right? And on top of that is what you build your skill on. So, but all of these guys, particular to their stream, particular to their ambition, will develop as a person. And I don't think we can really do too much to shove it down their throat and make them all salesmen. Because, let's say, for example, a backend developer, right? A backend developer, and I can tell you about my own backend developing guys. Those guys speak to me probably like once a month, like, "Hi, how are you?" And he basically looks at me like, and that's about it. If I get a smile, I'm lucky, right? And he's just like, "Boss, see, I'm there for development. I come into the office, I develop it well. I'm cordial to you. You ask me a question, I'll be fantastically professional. I'm kind to you. You need my help, I'm there for you. Of course, you have to be there for me. That's about it, right?" And I think they like it like that. But you go to my, let's say, the NBFC sales guys, right? When I even enter the door, "Good morning," Josh is there. So I think it's different context, right? So, but everyone in India, because of our education just being so fantastically diverse, such a high population, you learn, you're kind of embedded a little bit with a lot of interpersonal skills. And then you just form your own personality after that.
So, as in, I kind of second with whatever you're telling there. It is kind of ingrained in our old system. But I also feel that people believe skill is only enough for them to get forward. So that is what I was alluding to. But yeah, so okay, now coming to the fun part. Okay, fun part of the discussion. I like to call it decision dilemma. So wherein you're presented with two equal opportunities, two equal options, which are equally great. Not one is better or one is bad. It's like I'd rather not take the example. So I was thinking of a couple of actors, and then I was like, okay, let me not.
I thought we just got done with elections, so we're good.
Election is a little boring topic. So it's now that it is done, right? So I want to start. So with two good options. Both of them are equally interesting. These are your personal opinions, not necessarily your company opinions. I wanted to understand. Okay, I'll start with Ananth. Okay.
Yeah.
Personalization or privacy?
Goes hand in hand. Personalization.
No, you pick one.
Personalization. Honest personalization.
Dynamic pricing or fixed pricing for ads?
Dynamic.
In-house data analytics team or external data consultants?
In-house always.
AR, VR ads or traditional digital ads?
Traditional digital ads.
For customer experience, is it interactive ads or static ads? Which is better?
Interactive.
Interactive. Got it. Now, Aditya, for you next. Short-term loans or long-term loans?
Overdraft facility.
Hey, you should pick what I tell
I sell overdraft facilities, so overdraft facility. That I cannot. I will not choose.
Fintech collaborations or building in-house solutions?
In-house always.
More customers or deeply engaged customers?
More customers.
Blockchain-based security or traditional encryption?
Traditional encryption.
Digital or hybrid banking?
Hybrid banking.
Okay. Karthik, for you now. Okay. User growth or user engagement?
I would say it's a sequence. So user engagement first and then user growth.
Pick one.
So, okay, engagement. Engagement. Yeah.
Regional language or universal language?
Regional, always.
Ad revenue model or subscription model?
I think from an India context, ad revenue.
User privacy controls or content moderation tools?
This has to be both.
Like you will be like right leaning, left leaning. You cannot be an absolute centrist, right?
Okay, I would say content moderation.
Okay. So I lost track of where I was. For recommendation, algorithm driven or user curated?
I would say user curated.
Abhishek, so
Yes.
proactive customer support or reactive customer support?
Proactive,
Personalized customer journeys or standardized customer journeys?
personalized,
Gamification of customer experience or traditional engagement model?
gamification,
Real-time customer feedback or periodic customer service?
real time,
Integration with CRM systems or standalone success tool?
integration with CRM systems.
Your questions all very easy, okay? So, all your questions are easy. I feel I should have, done a little more. For Karthik, industry projects or academic research projects?
Industry projects,
Online learning or traditional classroom?
online learning,
Internships or placements?
internships,
Employability skills or deep subject knowledge?
deep subject knowledge.
Startups or corporates?
Difficult. Corporate. I mean, that was very difficult, the last one, because it has its.
So yeah, cool. Thank you very much. So so the idea of this initiative is to make India more employable, and then like there is a saying, right? Water everywhere when you're in the middle of sea, but no water to drink. That is the India state right now. When you look at it, there is so much of abundance of talent, but not employable talent. So the idea is to kind of bridge the gap. And then try to bring in a place where the industry also benefits. So the college has the infrastructure and the systems in place, whereas the industry has the expertise. Wanted to kind of bridge both of that. So I wanted to so share, be an internship or a industry project or a subject that you do, or an opportunity for somebody to talk to you or interact with you. Wanted each one of you to let's make a positive contribution towards making education more interesting and our students more employable. So start with you, Anand.
What is the point again? Sorry.
So what contribution can we do positively towards academia that can help India become more employable
As industry leaders,
as an
is it?
industry leader?
I think we need to engage more with academia. All right. As I, in my own capacity, engage more and more with academia, academia engages back with me. All right, and students engage back, and that kind of sets in motion a very good virtuous cycle, because that's where we came from. and that's where the next set of leaders are going to come from. And we need to sort of keep enriching each other. So I think once that starts happening, like you said, right, we're in the middle of the sea, so the water is not going to be spoon fed. The fun part is in being able to purify that, so that we take it ahead from there. So I think, yeah, that's my thought.
Actually, the question was like, what can we do more towards the academia right now as a contribution? Like, do you want to, say, have a pep talk with the students, or do you want to, have a couple of interns, join your team, or
Yeah.
something like that? Is what I meant.
I think in all by doing all of these, we are trying to sort of give the students a sense of what happens here. What is a day in the life of person X or leader Y, kind of doing their job. So through maybe an internship, or through us going and giving a pep talk, or me picking up say 5 students and mentoring them, all of that, if I'm able to give them a clear insight into, hey, this is what happens here. We don't fly rockets, and neither is it maybe if you have I would say different notions of what happens in industry. That's also not true. This is exactly what happens. Come into my office and see what I do. Stay for a couple of months, do an internship, or I'll come into your classroom and you ask me questions and I tell you what happens, and then we develop that relationship over time. If we don't let an ice to form between academia and industry, I think that's the best shot of us being able to get very employable graduates into industry, which is going to feed my leadership pipeline as things go ahead.
Got it. So, I'll come back to you on that. I have a more direct question. Over to you, Karthik.
So help me understand this. Your question is, what contribution can we make right
Can
now?
we make as
Okay,
an
got
individual
it.
right now? So, as in,
Got it.
let's say I, in my
Yeah.
personal capacity, can go and address a
Sure.
student, or I have a requirement for certain, tech skill. I
Got it.
will take in a couple of interns, something like that. That will, help us make India more employable in the two sense we can.
Fair. So I think one thing that stuck with me, as the panel also discussed, is about mentorship, right? And I think what contribution, at least I would keep myself open to, is in terms of mentoring at least students who are looking, at least fresh graduates, who are looking to enter the consumer tech space, right? If there are pointers, if there's career guidance, if they are stuck right now in terms of what they're doing, or kind of looking for, as Anand said, purpose, I think that's where I think I'm open to kind of contributing. In addition to that, of course, if any of the colleges kind of need me to give a talk, or at least converse with the students to help them overcome any barriers that they're facing currently, or help them even prep for placements, for example, I think I'm happy to contribute personally from that standpoint. Yes.
I feel the key is learning. So at the end of the day, there needs to be learning for both the parties, right? So what I have actually tried doing, over this last 10 to 15 years is I've tried learning a lot from, folks who are probably there in that particular field, who've just started their career, or say who just want guidance. So there are certain mentorship programs that I run. I'm associated with a couple of enablement societies, just to understand about it. What exactly is it that they are looking for. At the same time, this somewhere helps me understand that what is new, that's something which is still cooking, which probably can be the next new great idea. So this is something which helps. And I mean, I'm always open to say address folks in terms of, say, placement assistance, or at the same time, help individuals in terms of coaching them, or making them understand about a particular field in which I have an expertise. I would love to do that. I have kept doing it, and I would love to continue doing the same.
Got it. Over to you, Aditya.
I think from at least our end, we'll go ahead and commit. If you can go ahead and share whatever resumes that you have, we'll commit to 3 internships right now. So immediately 2 on the tech end, 1 on the business end. 2 full stacks, we'll run them through, train them in hardcore fintech, what it takes to build with RBI and SEBI, peeping under your shirt 24/7. And on the business end, what it means to remain sane when selling to banks and NBFCs. And in case anything is required, or at least on the college front, a lot of students just don't have deep knowledge on, especially fintech, and that's what we can deliver. So I'd be more than happy to really go 2 hours, properly give a complete deep dive, how it is, current state, what you do, what you build, what's the no can do's, what's the can do's, where the opportunities are, everything. One proper deep dive.
They will actually love it. When I interacted with students, right?
Yeah.
They were like, what kind of I just told them, imagine me being the Santa of your jobs and tell me what you want me to get you. They said more fintech. Can you get more fintech? So they
God
didn't
bless.
realize what is inside cooking.
Yeah.
No, but always happy. I think there's just such a knowledge gap, such a tremendous knowledge gap. Students have fantastic ideas, but they just, and they take bigger decisions before they really understand the path for the idea.
Bigger
Like,
and
chalo,
Yeah.
chalo, we'll move to Bangalore, leave the job. I don't want placement. Come over here. It's illegal,
Yeah.
right? The idea itself. So then
No, I
that's a
think if
big
there is
issue.
interest for more fintech,
No, you're
quickly it should be chased with a what is fintech.
No, the auditorium will be buzzing if you say 50 Fin Aditya is coming and there is a fintech talk that
that's-
is happening.
yeah.
The auditorium will have more students than it can accommodate. But then you will give them the reality.
No, and then it will have enough students still after the reality is
after
given.
it is done.
That's what I'm saying, right? Then those are the guys with the purpose, and 3 out of them he'll take.
I commit to that for sure.
Yeah. Coming back to you, so I wanted a direct contribution.
Tell
I
me.
didn't. So you gave me a longer answer of what needs to be done. What can we do in our capacity is what I wanted to understand.
We
We as in your capacity as we as individuals,
Yeah.
what can we do? So to your alma mater, how do we
see, because it's my alma mater, whatever they ask of me, I'm ready to do. All right.
ask
And
him
that's
100
how.
placements?
No, I don't think they'll ask me 100 placements, and I know that. Because the kind of holistic.
I'll ask him for internships.
Yeah.
I'll be very honest.
No,
That's
he'll
all
ask
I'll
me for a
him.
lot more. And see, I can commit to all of that. And that's how it has happened, even in case of my B school. Whenever there is an ask coming in, that you know what, students during their break come meet me, both in office. There is a program for that. Both me and my wife are from the same B school, from the same class. They come home and catch up with us. That happens. We go to the campus very frequently and have interactions, both in a professional capacity, that a leader of this, or even more a grounded, I would say, alumni coming to meet students and telling you how to sort of get through the journey with more fun. So I think all of that, I would say, happy to do it with with VI, and see what value I can add. Everything on the table, happy to pick.
You can ask him.
Yeah.
You did not
On camera, is it?
No, like when somebody says you ask, you should ask. Then it's always better for an apology than for permission, right? So you ask him. You ask him for a meeting with Mukesh Amman. So.
No, we'll be very reasonable in whatever we ask.
Yeah. No, in my capacity, right? You can ask for my car keys, I can give it to you. That's about it.
Okay, so you guys, want to take this after this. Okay, cool. Thank you very much. So, any closing thoughts from anybody?
Let me go first. I think for me, as an alumni, it's been a decade and a half now. My first, I would say, step outside of home was Pune. Where I would say, like you also said, you kind of form yourself. When you come outside home, that it was that experience for me. And I think that kind of started my professional journey. Right after VIT, and it's been very interesting to see even the institute having come so far, that post autonomy it is engaging so well with industry, with alumni, and doing a holistic approach in terms of how the students are graded and stuff like that. I think I'm very happy to have come here today. When VIT of all places came back knocking and asked me to come. It's great. I hope it's the start of something interesting, and I get opportunities to keep giving back. Yeah.
Karthik.
Yeah. No, I think fundamentally, First of all, thanks for having me. I think it's great to be here. But I think the discussion was very enriching because typically, and I think it's great. The initiative itself of Titan Talks is great because I think it's very important to have a bridge between people who are working in the industry and people from the academia, and more importantly, because obsolescence of what we are doing is increasing more and more. Like whatever skills and knowledge that we are collecting are becoming obsolete faster and faster. It is that much more important to be connected to what's happening in the industry, right? Because whatever you read in the textbook may be archaic by the time you pass out, right? And that's the truth. And hence, how do you build so many bridges wherein you are up to date with what the industry is thinking, what are the problems that they are solving? For example, what is 50 Fin's biggest biggest challenges? Understanding all of that is something that this forum creates, and obviously the academia as well as the students get an opportunity to kind of consume that. So I think this platform or this bridge is something that's great, and looking forward to contribute more towards it.
Abhishek.
First of all, thank you. Thanks a lot for having me here. And I would say that this is a very interesting initiative. One thing which I realized that later on when we were in between the conversation is that each one of us here is from a different field all put together. But at the end of the day, we know that the purpose is one, where we make sure that we give back to the society. At the same time, we learn a lot from the educational field. So, thanks a lot for this great initiative. And yes, it was a pleasure to be a part of this panel.
Thanks to you for organizing this all.
Oh,
I
thank
think
you.
that's really fantastic. It's very well put. And thank you for having me. But I sincerely believe that today's day and age, skill development for our people is the biggest national service you can do, right? There is nothing greater than skill development in this country in 2024. I can guarantee it. So anything towards that effort, fantastic. And, proud to be a part of it. Thank you for that.
Karthik.
I wish to say that from a college perspective, though placements is in one sense a goal, we have realized that we have to engage with industry on multiple fronts. Internships, hackathons, coaching, industry electives. So these days we are trying to engage with industry on several other fronts because we have understood now that placement, though it's a outcome, you may say, student getting jobs, because ultimately at the end of the day people ask what is the employability. But we have felt that no, you cannot just directly try to jump into it. You'll have to see what else has to be done in the ecosystem right so that you can get to that slowly over a period of time. Also because several students have several interests in it. There are so many students who say very clearly we want to do internship only with a startup. Since you had asked me about that startup versus corporate, because they feel that learning is a little bit more there. They feel like that. So we have realized that this is what we need to do, and that's our goal right now. Engage with industry on whatever front is possible. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for accepting the invite and being a part on an early Saturday morning. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to having all of you here. Let's all make India more employable. Hey, thanks for watching Titans Talk today. I hope you had a really insightful session. I'm Gautam, your global CHRO, who helps you buy, build, and rent talent across industries, across levels of experience. If you want to hire freshers or if you want to hire laterals, do get in touch with us with the link below, and my team will get in touch with you to take it from there. Looking forward to meeting you again in another episode.